Hey everyone, Amia here from Resonance Astrology. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to take a look at the astrology of the week ahead from September 22nd till September 28th of 2025. And we really open this week with essentially the autumn equinox, at least here in the northern hemisphere, because the sun enters Libra. So this kind of marks the balancing point between day and night, right? It's an equilibrium. That's where the name comes from, the equinox. So, and in German, for example, we say Tag-Nacht-Gleiche, which means day and night equilibrium, so to say. Officially, this marks the point where the darkness takes over the light, so the days officially start getting shorter and the nights start getting longer. This is also the reason that astrologically the sun in Libra doesn't do well. It's in its fall in the sign of Libra. So that's why the sun doesn't do so well there, right? Because why would it do well in a sign where the seasons are officially more about the darkness, so to say, than the light parts? There's also other connotations, but there isn't room for this right now in the astrology of the week ahead, because this is more of an overview. But I will say that we recorded this sun episode from Meet the Planet series, and this is going to be up, I don't know, in like maybe 2 months or so, and we did go really in depth around like why the sun is in its fall in the sign of Libra. So if you want to have a deep dive, be prepared. It's gonna be up and you're gonna be able to understand why the sun in Libra, or any other sign for that matter, which, you know, for example, in the sign of Aquarius, the sun also really doesn't do well there. And all the other domiciles as well. Why the sun is exalted, therefore, in the sign of Aries. And its domicile in the sign of Leo. All of that is going to be in the sun episode. But what I need you to know this time around is just that we are opening this week with the autumn equinox. And this also means the focus and the shift is kind of getting a bit more internal. Also, what is happening on the same date is that Mars enters Scorpio. And this is Mars going into its domicile after a long, long time. Because Mars has two domiciles, Scorpio and Aries. Has its exaltation in Capricorn, which we're also going to get to by the end of this year. But let's look at when Mars was last time in one of its domicile. In Aries. That was April of 2024. That has been a while ago. That's been like 17 months without Mars being in its own home sign and being able to harness its power. And also, just to give you a perspective, this is when Jupiter was still in Taurus, okay? So it's been a while, okay? We went through like the whole arc of Jupiter in Gemini since Mars was last time in its own domiciled sign where it had its full power. What happened in the meantime? Well, you might remember we had the Mars retrograde. This is why it's taken such a long time. And we really had Mars in a weakened position because most of the retrograde cycle was when Mars was in Cancer. It was also briefly with Mars in Leo, but mainly it was with Mars in Cancer. And Mars in Cancer is in its fall. And what we also had prior to that was Mars in Taurus, also not in a very good position, in a weakened position. And then just now we're coming out of Mars in Libra, also in a weakened position. So it's really been a big stretch of time since we had Mars in a strong position. Mars in Scorpio is yin, is feminine, more like internal energy, very strategic. It's not so much about outwards fire of Aries that is just like very dominant and like, I'm gonna go and do things. Mars in Scorpio is a bit quieter. It's like that inner resolve, that inner decisiveness and resourcefulness. And this is a renewal of our internal drive and definitely clarity and determination about our desires. I know we associate desires a lot with Venus, and that's not wrong. I think desires are also very much a dominion of Mars. Because let's not forget that our desires are like the driving force of why we get up in the morning and why we do things. And that is Mars. That is Mars for sure. So don't just think that desires belong to Venus. I think values belong much more to Venus than desire does. Desires are very much a Martian thing. It's really the drive, okay? And so now with Mars and Scorpio, it's about the internal drive. What drives us? Like what the internal desires of what we want to get drive us. And that inner resolve that once we make that decision, what can happen? You might have maybe experienced sometime in your life, once you're actually set, once you have that inner resolve about, I want this thing, and you are so 100% convinced that you want this thing, the universe conspires to get that thing into your life. Now, obviously, many scenarios happen then. We get overwhelmed. It's too much all of a sudden. Maybe we have the capacity to actually receive it. But that's Mars and Scorpio, okay? And so I do really like that we are getting Mars and Scorpio now, especially after this eclipse season, because now it's like, okay, where can we focus our energy on? Where can we be resourceful and really focus and direct our energy towards? Because Mars and Libra, a lot more scattered, a lot more, I'm not sure if I want this, if I want that. So Mars and Scorpio is going to be so much better when it comes to actually honing and honoring our desires. Then on Tuesday, September 23rd, we have the Sun in Libra opposing Neptune in Aries. And this is an aspect that will repeat yearly. As a matter of fact, one day later, the Sun in Libra also trines Uranus and Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius. This is something very new and something that we're going to have to get used to getting every year for a long time from now on. We had different transits. When Neptune was still in Pisces, we had the Sun in Pisces doing the squaring moment. But now that Neptune is in Aries, I just said that wrong, didn't I? I meant when Neptune was in Pisces, the Sun in Virgo was opposing Neptune, not Pisces. I just realized I said that wrong. Apologies for that. So yeah, it's a new energy, as you can imagine, especially because the Sun in Virgo isn't in like a weakened position per se, but the Sun in Libra is in a weakened position. And so there is a big questioning and probably like a collective moment around Tuesday this week of really questioning our ideals and maybe the disillusionment of our ideals and our values. And it may really like bring a reality check about the life path and the vision that we've been chasing, and really like marking this as a question mark. Is this really where I want to go? Is this really where I want to head? Is this aligning with the values that I have in my life? And then we move into Wednesday, which is really the biggest day of this week. Okay, this is like high energy, high stakes kind of day. Why? Because first of all, as already mentioned before, Sun in Libra is trining Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius. That's, a lot of like volatility compressed together. A lot of like breakthroughs possible as well, but definitely also disruptions. And what we also have is Mars and Scorpio squaring Pluto in Aquarius. And whenever Mars and Pluto connect, the atmosphere gets sharp, intense, and even volatile. Mars and Pluto can be a volatile combination. And I'm really not even saying this as a joke at all. This is the moment, this is not the moment to force decisions or push conflicts, because they could easily turn more violent than we want to. So do be cautious with words, with any sort of sharp tools. Okay, if you are in the kitchen cutting something and intuitively you're feeling maybe I should put on the gloves, do put on the gloves. So, because Mars in Scorpio is quite intuitive, it feels, it senses things. That's why I feel like it's a good day. If there's one day where you should let your paranoid thoughts take over and be extra cautious, it's Wednesday. Do be. If you're just feeling a sense of maybe I should not go out with that person that I don't know so well, maybe I should not go to that gathering. Maybe I should not go out for whatever reason. Maybe I should not take that train. Maybe I should, again, not cut my vegetables without gloves or proper caution. Just take the necessary steps to actually do so. Or just listen to your intuition and stay home if that feels like the better option. Definitely, driving in any risky encounters could just be amplified that day, depending on how it's in your chart. Of course, if it's like in an angular position or any sort of other aspects are getting activated in a very harsh way, just do be careful, okay? There's a lot of like kind of volatile, disruptive energy just compressed into that day of Wednesday. So just be careful. And what is amplifying all of this even more is the fact that the moon is also in Scorpio that day. The moon enters Scorpio. So it amplifies all of that. So do trust your instincts. And again, if anything feels off, just step back. Like, it's okay to lean into healthy paranoia and a healthy sense of precaution. And this is going to be felt throughout Monday till Thursday, I would say, because ever since Mars moves into Scorpio, which is today, it's going to already start like perfecting that aspect since it's right at the beginning. And then probably Thursday is going to be a day where it like kind of wanes up. So do tread carefully. Don't push or rush any big moves that don't want to happen, and don't burn any bridges precautiously. Allow Mars and Scorpio to settle in. We'll have like so much time to work with its power. Just at the beginning is definitely just a bit volatile. So this is kind of really beginning till midweek, and then again Thursday probably still kind of waning off, but by the second part of the week the cycle softens, the week softens, the moon really does most of its job and its part. There isn't really a lot of other things that are going on September 25th. The waxing crescent moon perfects in the sign of Scorpio. On September 26th, the moon moves into the sign of Sagittarius. And again, there's really no major planetary aspects after that. Like, only the moon is doing its trines and squares and oppositions and all of that, which is giving us a bit space to integrate both the eclipse cycles and probably what Mars in Scorpio is bringing into our lives and like the shakeup that this has happened. So really the most notable part of this week is really Wednesday. It starts off rough, but then it wanes and we have more time to settle in and integrate. So to give us a bit of a preview of next week, the most notable development that is happening is that Venus is approaching the South Node in Virgo. This is going to be exact on October 4th. So again, a bit in the future, okay, we're really like going way ahead here. But this is something that is perfecting, like, we can probably, depending on which parts of our charts are getting activated and if there's any personal planets getting activated, we might already be feeling that now, just because, again, this is also, all of this is kind of settling the eclipse cycle. We're just getting out of it. Okay, the eclipse just happened yesterday. We're not over it. And it's I think I like to look at transits as the exact moment being the peak. But then, it's like, it goes like this. It perfects, and then it wanes. So it's not like we have the cycle and boom, the energy surges and then it goes away. Like, that's not what happens. Things are still developing, settling in. Clarity is rushing through our veins in whatever way to like fully integrate what has happened during this eclipse cycle. And I do think, I mentioned this last week as well, because that eclipse in Virgo was ruled by Mercury, that is in mutual reception in Venus. A lot of what Venus is doing is leading to that integration part. And especially once Venus hits that third decan of Virgo, which will be around like mid-October, beginning mid-October. This is when we're going to get the full integration. So give this eclipse season at least 2 weeks to like fully settle in and notice the changes. And again, just a preview, when Venus is approaching that South Node, this will bring further themes of letting go, of perfectionism, of control, over analysis, especially in our relationships, values, and creative expressions. So this is kind of what we are looking forward to a week after that. So yes, this is what I have for you this week, guys. We're gonna record the Decans of Libra this week. Is gonna be up on Wednesday or on Thursday this week. Not quite sure yet how far I will go with or be able to go with the editing. So this is going to be exciting. We're going to talk more about Libra. And we're also probably going to touch upon like the sun a bit more there, right? Because we're going through the journey of the sun. And yeah, other than that, if you didn't already see, the Mercury episode is up on the channel from the Meet the Planet series. This is my new podcast series. We've been going through the houses. Now we are focusing on the planets and really basically how you can build a relationship to the planets. Like seeing, in this case with Mercury as an example, how does Mercury show up in my day-to-day life? How can I build a better relationship to Mercury? How can I understand when Mercury is retrograde, what the role is of Mercury? How can I spot him? So we are giving you practical advice there. And, you know, it's a free podcast series. It's available on YouTube. It's available on Spotify. The links are always down in the description, so you can find it very easily. The Moon episode is out now. Mercury episode has been out since last week. We're going to continue with Venus, because we're going in Chaldean order. So Venus is going to be next. And after that, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. And then we're probably going to go into the outer planets as well. And maybe some other things. I'm still open to maybe also bringing in some asteroids. If there's any other planetary body that you would be curious that we make a specific episode on, that are not like the 7 inner planets and the 3 outer planets. Maybe, you know, you want a whole episode on Chiron. Let me know down in the comments, because I will make sure that we have somebody on here on the podcast to be able to talk a bit more in depth about that and how to connect to specific planetary bodies. I was also thinking maybe fixed stars. There's so much, honestly. And I really love talking about the planets because they're the skeleton of astrology. We can do astrology without the signs, without the houses, but we cannot do astrology without the planets. So they are the forefront, and I highly urge everyone to just get in tune with them, because once you get in tune with the planets, life gets easier to approach, because there is a sort of resonance that happens when we understand the cycles, the patterns, and what every planet brings. We stop focusing and obsessing on, oh my gosh, I'm going to have this terrible transit in 2 weeks or in 1 year and my life is going to fall apart. No, instead we bring it back to curiosity. Bring it back to curiosity and really asking questions, not already making our opinion on, oh, this is going to be horrible or blah, blah, blah. No, every planet has a chance, an opportunity. And if we stay focused, we could say the same thing about Mars in Scorpio squaring Pluto this week. Okay, there is a cautionary tale for sure, because we know from observation that Mars squaring Pluto can be rather volatile. At the same time, let's also still stay curious, because it could show up in tiny ways depending on how it's in our charts. I guess, for example, in my case, Mars is in Scorpio, my first house. Of course, I'm going to be more cautious during that time because it's involving me. Okay, it's in my first house. And Pluto is in my 4th house. So yeah, I should be cautionary around my home. And I swear, if anything happens, I hope I'm not jinxing this right now, I'll tell you about it in next week's episode. So it's good to be cautious. At the same time, I'm going to stay curious. Maybe just some tiny things happen. Again, like maybe I'm cutting my vegetables and I'm like, maybe I should put the gloves on today. So I'm going to listen to that when it's in my home. Or just something else, like maybe I'm going to move something. I'm just going to be a little bit more cautious on Wednesday and be curious how it's going to show up in my life. It might also just lead to a transformative moment between what exactly I want to exhibit and my desires. It might be something internal, much less than it might be something external. That's why I'm going to stay curious. And that's why it's good to really deeply understand the planets and what they bring into our lives, because then we can show up much better. And instead of being scared, being curious. So this was my final little segment. I wish you a lovely week ahead, again, with some cautionary advice. And let me know down in the comments how you've been feeling, how you've been integrating this eclipse season so far, if it's already possible. Maybe there's just so much you're like, gosh, I just need to rest for 3 days straight. So yeah, we're gonna see each other soon. Again, Decans of Libra is gonna be up. You have the Meet the Planet series, and yeah, otherwise we're gonna see each other next week. So bye.